Acura and Audi. Both younger brands, at least in terms of their luxury appeal, will be pitting these two premium utility vehicles against each other to see which one you should take your kids in to their next big game.
All right, let's break down the RDX. First up, the engine. The new RDX has a 3.5-liter V6. Gone is the 4-cylinder turbocharged engine on the last generation. Despite the change in engine, the RDX is still powerful with 273 horsepower and 251 pound-feet of torque. The only transmission available on the RDX is 6-speed automatic with sequential paddle shifting. The RDX offers front-wheel drive, but for an additional $1,500, you can get an all-wheel drive system. You get a 20 mpg in the city, 28 mpg on the highway for a combined 23 miles per gallon. The RDX starts at $34,320. You throw in the all-wheel drive, and it's pretty comparable to the Audi Q5.
With an available 3.2-liter V6 making even more power, our car comes with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, making 211 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque. Being an Audi, it's available exclusively with the brand's Quattro all-wheel drive system, plus there's an 8-speed automatic transmission to help improve fuel economy. As for those numbers, they're remarkably similar to the RDX, with 20 miles per gallon in the city, 27 on the highway, and a combined 22 miles per gallon. The Audi Q5 2.0T starts at $35,600, whereas our Premium Plus test model here costs $39,900. The Audi Q5 has aged gracefully over the years, but it has aged in the half a decade that it's been on sale. Now, when it comes to the car's styling, that's shown a little bit. It does look kind of bulbous from the rear, and from some different angles, it's not all that inspired. I do have to say, however, that it easily has the best front end of these two vehicles, with that big, prominent, aggressive, and serious Audi grille. And of course, Audi's now signature LED daytime running lights.
As you can see, the exterior styling for the 2013 Acura RDX is very different from the previous generation. In fact, the body's still the same size, but it looks slimmer and lower, and gone is that Joker smile. This vehicle is definitely a vast improvement, but the truth is, it's almost indistinguishable from the MDX.
I'm happy to report that while the exterior does look a little bit dated, the interior most certainly does not. As you are going to be using this as a family hauler, it's nice to know that there's lots of rear seat space. Even at just over 6 feet tall, I fit in here no problem at all. Now, the back seat area is a little bit less spacious than what you'll find in the RDX. However, with this optional panoramic sunroof, it certainly feels a lot more spacious in here. There's a lot of technology available inside the Audi Q5, but that's the problem. It's available, not standard. We're talking about items like Bluetooth or an iPhone hookup. Both of those cost extra. Now, you can also get this nice push-button ignition with keyless access, but again, that's going to cost you $550 more and isn't standard when it really should be on any luxury vehicle. I do love Audi's MMI interface with this big and beautiful 7-inch screen, and the controller is right down here exactly where your hand rests, rather than on the RDX where you're reaching up and stretching all the time to find it, and the RDX just has way too many buttons. This really simplifies things. The problem again though, that system costs $3,000.
Now, understandably so, performance and styling are extremely important, but what is king now when it comes to brand new crossovers is technology, and the Acura does not fail, starting with keyless entry and push start ignition. One of my favorite things now is that they've introduced a rear view camera with 3 angles. Furthermore, what's great is your connectivity. Bluetooth, which is standard when it comes to Acura. And one of the final things that I like on the technology package is simply the power tailgate. It makes getting things in and out of the trunk so much easier than before. When it comes to cabin space and interior for the Acura RDX, Acura has done a very good job of keeping their materials premium. For example, the perforated leather looks great, doesn't feel cheap, and is quite comfortable to sit in. One thing that I always love is that the rear space of the RDX has always been spacious. For someone like myself or Colin, who are 6-footers, we are comfortably inside. Now, the Q5 doesn't really permit for 5 people in the rear because of a small hump within the center, but the Acura RDX accommodates it perfectly. But what I love on the Q5 that the RDX doesn't have is that you could easily put your snowboards or skis through here, whereas there's a 60-40 split in the RDX where you kind of lose some passenger space. When it comes to trunk space in the RDX, it's the same as the previous generation, so a lot of drivers out there will be quite pleased. Now, when it comes to overall trunk space in both the RDX and the Q5, well, when you put the seats down, the RDX is the winner.
Compared to the RDX, the Audi Q5's 2-liter engine is down significantly on horsepower, but it never feels that way thanks to a very healthy dose of torque. The downside of the turbocharged engine is, of course, that it's a little less refined and even sounds sort of diesel-y at times. When it comes to a premium brand like Audi, we really like something that's a bit more relaxed, again, like the V6 and the Acura. Overall, the Audi does deliver the more engaging driving experience of the two cars, and much of that reason has to do with the steering. It's a lot more precise on the Audi. It's also weighted a lot heavier, which at times is odd. The Acura, by contrast, is refined and smooth, perhaps a bit too relaxed, but at least it's the same way all the time.
What makes driving this 2013 RDX different from the previous model is that gone is the 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Now you've got the V6, and the transmission of the V6 way smoother. What I really enjoy about it too is it's still a comfortable ride. Compared to the Q5, I found the Q5 was a little on the stiff side in terms of seating as well, wasn't as comfortable for someone like myself. What you get with the RDX is refined comfort, you still get great style and power, and it's easy to drive.
To sum up, there's a lot I do like about the Audi Q5, starting with that big aggressive front grille. I also really enjoy the driving dynamics and, of course, the interior. And not just the luxury, but the ergonomics too. As for what I don't like, it's a pretty short list, but it has one very important factor on it, and that's money. Now, you really have to spend a lot to get the Q5 that you want. A good example is the V6 engine. Now, if you want a V6 Q5, which is actually the real competitor to the Acura RDX we have here, it's going to cost you $43,000 to start, and it doesn't get near the fuel economy of the Acura.
Here's what I love about the RDX. First and foremost, redesign. Acura's made it up to its consumers and said, let's give you a better looking crossover. Also, when it comes to technology that is standard within the RDX, it's fantastic, from Bluetooth, SMS text messaging, rear view cameras, and so much more. The one thing that is missing that I think the RDX could use are some of the great sporty driving dynamics that you would find in a Q5. Honestly, the Acura looks good and feels good, but the Q5 is a little more fun to drive.
If you've got the budget, the Q5 really is a nice ride, and it's targeted at a very specific kind of person.
Now, if the Q5 is not for you, the RDX might be for you. Standard tech, great interior, brand new for 2013, great fuel economy, it's affordable, it gives you more bang for your buck, and I think it's something that you shouldn't overlook.
And we both agree that for the vast majority of consumers, the RDX is the car to get here. What's surprising is that considering how long the Q5 has been on the market, we thought this would be an easy victory for the Acura, but the result is much less conclusive. For more on this car comparison and others like it, visit AutoGuide.com.